same elegiac suburban note. One rather short story, not so short, I fear, that you'll all feel cheated and right from the library here. But I found lately I tend to read too much. I pick some theme and then I go through and the people begin to filter out and visibly yawn and even nod off. It's a funny thing about somebody who's asleep in the audience, how your eye keeps going to them. So this isn't so long. It's about swimming pools, or about a swimming pool. The hero of this story is a swimming pool. I thought I was in the land of swimming pools, and it would speak to you, even though it takes place in a Connecticut, long ago Connecticut, really. I was trying to remember when the date of this story might be, and I would guess late 60s. Describing a cultural moment which in some sense is gone, but in another sense persists. The orphaned swimming pool. Marriages, like chemical unions, release upon dissolution packets of the energy locked up in their bonding. There's the piano no one wants, the cocker spaniel no one can take care of. Shelves of books suddenly stand revealed as burdensomely dated and unlikely to be reread. Indeed, it is difficult to remember who read them in the first place. And what of those old skis in the attic? Or the dollhouse waiting to be repaired in the basement? The piano goes out of tune, the dog goes mad. The summer that the Turners got their divorce, their swimming pool had neither a master nor a mistress, though the sun beat down day after day and a state of drought was declared in Connecticut. It was a young pool, only 2 years old, of the fragile type fashioned by laying a plastic liner within a carefully carved hole in the ground. The Turners' side yard looked infernal while it was being done. One bulldozer sank into the mud and had to be pulled free by another. But by midsummer the new grass was sprouting, the encircling flagstones were in place, the blue plastic tinted the water a heavenly blue, and it had to be admitted that the Turners had scored again. They were always a little in advance of their friends. He was a tall, hairy-backed man with long arms and a nose flattened by football, and a sullen look of too much blood. She was a fine-boned blonde with dry blue eyes and lips usually held parted and crinkled as if about to ask a worrisome or whimsical question. They never seemed happier, nor their marriage healthier, than those 2 summers. They grew brown and supple and smooth with swimming. Ted would begin his day with a swim before dressing to catch the train, and Linda would hold court all day amid crowds of wet matrons and children, and Ted would return from work to find a poolside cocktail party in progress. And the couple would end their day at midnight, when their friends had finally left, by swimming nude before bed. What ecstasy! In darkness the water felt mild as milk and buoyant as helium, and the swimmers became giants, gliding from side to side in a single languorous stroke. The next May, the pool was filled as usual, and the usual after-school gangs of mothers and children gathered, but Linda, unlike her, stayed indoors. She could be heard within the house, moving from room to room, but she no longer emerged, as in other summers, with a cheerful tray of ice and a brace of bottles and Triscuits and lemonade for the children. Their friends felt less comfortable about appearing, towels in hand at the Turners on weekends. Though Linda had lost some weight and looked elegant, and Ted was cumbersomely jovial, they gave off the faint, sleepless, awkward-making aroma of a couple in trouble. Then, the day after school was out, Linda fled with the children to her parents in Ohio. Ted stayed nights in the city, and the pool was deserted, though the pump that ran the water through the filter continued to mutter in the lilacs. The cerulean pool grew cloudy. The bodies of dead horseflies and wasps dotted the still surface. A speckled plastic ball drifted into a corner beside the diving board and stayed there. The grass between the flagstones grew lank. On the glass-topped poolside table, a spray can of off had lost its pressure, and a gin and tonic glass held a sere mint leaf. The pool looked desolate and haunted, like a stagnant jungle spring. It looked poisonous and ashamed. The postman, stuffing overdue notices and pornography solicitations into the mailbox, averted his eyes from the side yard politely. Some June weekends, Ted sneaked out from the city. Families driving to church glimpsed him dolefully sprinkling chemical substances into the pool. He looked pale and thin. He instructed Roscoe Chase, his neighbor on the left, how to switch on the pump and change the filter, and how much chlorine and algatrol should be added weekly. He explained he would not be able to make it out every weekend, as if the distance that for years he had traveled twice each day, gliding in and out of New York, had become an impossibly steep climb back into the past. Linda, he confided vaguely, had left her parents in Akron and was visiting her sister in Minneapolis. As the shock of the Turners' joint disappearance wore off, their pool seemed less haunted and forbidding. The Murtaugh children, the Murtaughs, a rowdy, numerous family, were the Turners' right-hand neighbors, began to use it without supervision. So Linda's old friends with their children began to show up, quote, to keep the Murtaughs from drowning each other. For if anything were to happen to a Murtaugh, the poor Turners, the adjective had become automatic, would be sued for everything, right when they could least afford it. It became then a kind of duty, a test of loyalty, to use the pool. July was the hottest in 27 years. People brought their own lawn furniture over in station wagons and set it up. Teenage offspring and Swiss au pair girls were established as lifeguards. A nylon rope with flotation corks meant to divide the wading end from the diving end of the pool was found coiled in the garage and reinstalled. Agnes Cleefield contributed an old refrigerator which was wired to an outlet above Ted's basement workbench and used to store ice, quinine water, and soft drinks. An honor system shoebox containing change appeared beside it. A little lost and found, an array of forgotten sunglasses, flippers, towels, lotions, paperbacks, shirts, even underwear, materialized in the Turners' side steps. When people that July said, "Meet you at the pool," they did not mean the public pool past the shopping center or the country club pool beside the first tee. They meant the Turners. Restrictions on admission were difficult to enforce tactfully. A visiting Methodist bishop, 2 Taiwanese economists,